Hi, everybody. I'm here with Lesley Gregory, and we are talking recruiter enablement. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, but very delighted to be joined by Lesley today. Lesley, first of all, give us a quick introduction to you. What do you do? What's your background?
Hi, I'm Lesley Gregory. I work for Amazon. I run a team of senior business partners in our talent acquisition team in EMEA, and I support two large internal businesses in Amazon in our stores operations, worldwide stores operations across the EMEA space, and those teams recruit managers, what we call level 4 to level 7. So there we go. That's what I get up to and keeps me out of trouble. Good 5 days a week.
So Amazon's my favorite shop, incidentally, but
Good,
uh,
good.
tell me about how you got to this job, because you weren't born and then started this job. There's been a lot of things you've done since, like in the journey to get here, and I think people will find that interesting.
Okay, I started off my life in high street recruitment back in the days of a curly perm and shoulder pads masquerading as a Dallas wannabe. Some people will definitely have to Google that. Yeah, I used to have to take my hubcap earrings off to be able to pick up the phone and put it to my ear. So quite a long time ago. We didn't have computers. We had a Rolodex, a telephone and a lever arch file back in those days. I progressed through that kind of high street recruitment, went in-house. My first in-house exploration was with a company called HFC Bank, which is since swallowed into HSBC. So I worked with Americans for the first time in Birmingham. And that was quite funny because they did come in Stetsons and in cowboy boots. Yeah, we weren't quite used to that in Brum. Later on, worked through again back into agency, did high street, both industrial recruitment, call centre recruitment, all sorts of things typical of the era, and then moved back in-house and stayed in-house, except when I've done RPO, because I worked for Capita as an outsourcer. I was in their internal recruitment team. I then went to their external recruitment team and did the BBC as an outsource, and then back in again running their recruitment. I've led the delivery of two apps as the product owner and director, and supported a Ukrainian development team building those apps. So swapped my management of recruiters for management of people in product development and software engineering. So that was quite interesting. Sometime after that, I found myself interviewing for Amazon and going through what they call their on-site panel, which is quite intense. And at the ripe old age of 55, I landed in Amazon, which is 3.5 years ago now, which gives away my current age, obviously 21. I've been at Amazon since then, which is brilliant, and has been, again, another stage of development, which is fab.
I just want to quickly, before we talk about recruiter enablement, can I just quickly talk to you about you've led technology teams building apps and building products. Did that experience do you think help you visualize recruiting in a slightly different way? Is there anything you learned from your experience in doing that you've taken into recruiting, do you think?
Yeah, I think, right, I think this is where, having worked without any computers in my life before, yeah, and having to think about processes manually, and then transfer that later in life to thinking about processes within teams using system or automation. I think that's really a useful thing to have. I think the reason I said yes to doing that was that I always thought that recruiters as a whole, whilst fairly technically savvy, kind of stay away from the IT side, if you like. And actually what I wanted to know was, what was the dark side like, and would I be okay if I went there? So that was really useful. But I definitely think understanding the user experience is the most critical thing. So I think if you're talking recruiter enablement, it's the recruiter's user experience that's critical. And often what we think as recruiters are, when we're navigating a process, we're navigating what the business wants which might not be the best user experience for the candidate, or we want the process that exists, and then we build it like that rather than the process that should exist because it's a really intuitive process. So the biggest learning I ever had in that period was I knew exactly what our candidate customer wanted. I knew. I've been doing this for ages. No, I didn't. So when we actually brought a user experience agency in to review some of the tooling that we'd done, it was absolutely fascinating to find out feedback in an area where I just thought we'd nailed it was really bad. And it's very, very useful to consider user experience feedback all the time throughout any process, whether it's a manual process or automated or anything else, because I suppose today what we know is that when you have an app on your phone, it doesn't stay long on your phone if you can't work it out. And the same is true for systems in the workplace. It becomes very frustrating for employees if the user experience for them isn't very good, and definitely the same is true for candidates. They'll be long gone off your application process if the experience isn't great. So, yeah.
I mean, I think that's a wonderful insight, and I think a lot of people find that really interesting. And I absolutely agree, and I think that we should be looking at recruitment in a similar lens as to the way that people look at products and how they develop products and the experience and the feedback and all that sort of thing. So, like recruitment to me, it has become more complex. I think you started slightly earlier than me, but I do remember the days when we had one computer shared across a team. I had a Rolodex as well. You know, can I use the email system, please? Is it my turn yet?
We were on DOS when it first happened, so that was quite interesting. It was like the ticker tape across the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, I definitely think that recruitment has got more complex, and to me, recruiters need a lot of assets and tools and props and calculators and scripts and processes and things. Mm-hmm. Like in general, like what are the things that you've learned about this over the years, and how do you think about enabling recruiters to be productive and successful?
I think simplicity is key, and the more breaks in the process, the more risk you have. And by a break in the process, I mean, let's say you've got 2 or 3 systems that don't talk to each other. Immediately, you've got to elastoplast that with a human being's behavior. Automatically, that means 3 systems to open, so that's slowing people down. The zigzag between going into this one, out to that one, and back in again, all of that risks error and mistakes. So wherever it's possible to have the system automated or integrated. So integrated if you've got 3 systems and it's not practical to have one, or the cost to do that is, not something you can manage, then integrating those 3 systems to remove that human bump, if you like, I think is really useful. Definitely wherever you've got human intervention required, then it needs to be intuitive so that a recruiter or a hiring manager doesn't need to think, that it's so obvious to them what the next step is, that it supports them to take it. If there's so many choices that you need a standard operating procedure today to enable that, then maybe we haven't got the process right. That doesn't mean to say that you can't start with your first iteration and get to the perfect endpoint. And I think that is often the case in Amazon. We go early out and iterate as we go because that's the right thing to do. But yeah, sometimes it can be difficult if it feels like things are being rolled on to recruiters without the consideration of that feedback being required as well. So I think being open to feedback, having a really standard mechanism to enable that to happen on a regular basis, and to ensure that you're encouraging the team to self-improve things by sharing their inputs as well, I think is really, really important. And that way, the whole process elevates and we end up with a better outcome. So definitely would be saying that.
I couldn't agree more around like every time a manual process is required because a system doesn't talk to another system, it's like just banana skins every single time, isn't it? And you want to remove those. And what you said about, if anybody involved, whether it's a candidate or a recruiter or a hiring team are involved, and they don't know what button to click next because there's too many choices or whatever it might be. I totally agree. We've got an overly complex process, I think, in that situation. Recruiters need a lot of, like, more specifically, recruiters need a lot of assets to complete their tasks. So they need things like, assessment assets, and they need talent sourcing assets and recruitment marketing content and talent intelligence and processes and policies. And have you ever had any sort of involvement in or thoughts about, like, how do we make sure that recruiters get access to all the things that they need? Because it's such a, they're all over the place. In a typical recruitment team, they're all over the place.
Yeah, I think that's where AI is coming, isn't it? Rather fast and rather smart to help. But yeah, is it a perfect world yet? No, of course not. But I think straight away, in Amazon, we're have been users of wikis, but wikis can now be aggregated through knowledge bases using AI, and that sort of approach is life changing. I mean, I would say it's happening, and it's something that we're definitely seeing. So that's a really great way of supporting ease of access to the right information. But again, systems, and I suppose this is where my bias, Amazon's very good, it has its own software, so it builds in these kind of enablements so that we are minimized around that. But talking outside Amazon, it's not untypical that you are elastoplasting, as I said earlier, and you're jumping between systems, and that recruiters are struggling with the volume of extra tasks that enable them to do their job and detracting from the outcomes that they really need to make. And I think that's where I'd say Amazon is really working very, very hard to drive out those additional processes that are unnecessary to enable recruiters to add the value that's really, really important. The experiences with a candidate where the human moment really matters, rather than the email that got sent to bypass the system that did X, Y, and Z. We don't want that. We want standardization and an enablement that means that we're minimizing the extra steps outside of the standard, if you like. And I think that's the key. If we can get to that, then it will be a really slick world. And yeah, I mean, AI around wikis of what the policy is that says this and things like that. It's just, life is changing, and that is one of those. If I said, I'll make you smile, but I remember when SMS came in on the desktop, and we put an SMS out to say, we got a load of jobs in a particular area, and the receipt of that SMS to thousands of telephones meant that they all called back at the same moment in time and crashed the reception, which is quite hilarious now because you wouldn't do anything like that. But it's like AI is that kind of excitement, isn't it? It's got some real capability to bring systems together, to bring policies, to bring processes into a ready and available place, just so that can be smoothed, I think.
Are you, just one sort of final question? I'm really intrigued. Are you, like, if you think about your career, maybe like a couple of years into recruiting, not the very beginning, but like just a couple of years in, and then your view on recruitment today.
Yes.
Are you more pessimistic or optimistic about the state of recruitment today compared to 30 years ago?
I'm still optimistic. I am optimistic because not everyone wants to be treated to an entirely removed experience. I mean, I think that has changed over a number of years. I mean, I look at my kids who are not kids, who are adults. They do a lot of their stuff on a phone, and so do I. You know, am I completely that way? Not completely, but I am mainly. So yeah, we have changed loads, but does that mean that where those value add moments are still there, do they still count? Yes, I think they do. And I think that counts with a candidate, a hiring manager, the recruiters themselves with the business, who you're serving, whether that's internally or as an external provider. I still think, you know, you need to provide a link to the technology with a human interface, and you need to be able to interpret and pick up on the nuances that a business might require and why. You need to be able to interpret what the business needs and what data and trending needs to be. Now, if you're using AI to pull it all together, well, fine, but does that mean that we're erased? No, I don't think it does. And I think, my big thing around business partnering, which is what my team itself does, is that without that, you can't bring all the facets of the knowledge together and have the conversations that really uncover what the primary points of interest are for the business. So I think I'm still hopeful, and I'm really hopeful that the pieces that I think recruiters have always been good at, they're great communicators. In my day, it was you were considered a salesperson, and some people didn't really like that, but that's what I started off as. I had to win the business I supplied into. But that was communication skills, and it was believing in what I was talking about, and it was taking the time to listen and understand. And that's the recruiter's skill set, whether it's with a customer or with a candidate customer. It doesn't matter. That's the skill. So how do we elevate that skill in today's world and make that a really important part of what all recruiters do, but don't probably think about it in that way? It's a really massive big bit, I think.
Lesley, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed listening to your insights and finding out more about your position on enabling recruiters and the current state of recruitment. And it's been really great to talk to you. So thank you very much for joining me today. And for everybody that's been watching this, I hope you've enjoyed.
Thanks very much. Cheers, Adam.